Park Hyun sat in the large chair made for beings much bigger than humans and tried not to show his anger on his face. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up and up toward the bright ceiling. Each species had their own section with chairs and desks that fit their bodies. The humans had the smallest section with only 12 seats, while other species had hundreds. The air in the chamber smelled like metal and strange chemicals from all the different alien life support systems. Park Hyun breathed through his mouth to avoid the worst of it. He had been doing this for 3 years now and still could not get used to the smell. Admiral Kim Soo sat to his right with her arms crossed and her face like stone. She wore her dark blue uniform with all the medals she had earned fighting pirates in the outer systems. Her black hair was pulled back tight, and her dark eyes watched every alien in the room like they might attack at any moment. Lee Bo-young sat to his left with a tablet in her hands. She was the best negotiator Earth had ever produced, but even she looked tired after 3 years of these talks. Her fingers moved over the tablet screen as she took notes on everything being said. The translation devices made sure everyone could understand each other, but sometimes the meaning got lost anyway. Counselor Veltar was speaking again. He was a hegemony representative with gray skin that looked like old leather and 6 arms that moved while he talked. His voice came through the translators as cold and proud. "The newest species continues to make demands beyond their station," Veltar said while looking directly at the human section. "These barely evolved mammals think they deserve the same rights as civilizations that have existed for thousands of years." Park Hyun felt his jaw muscles tighten but kept his face calm. This was not the first time they had called humans barely evolved mammals. It was becoming a common insult in the council chambers. Other alien representatives made sounds that the translator said meant agreement. The tall blue Centaurians clicked their beaks. The slug-like Morvarians made wet slapping sounds with their tentacles. The crystal beings from Zerion rang like broken bells. "Perhaps," said another voice, "the human delegation would benefit from observing rather than participating for another few decades while they learn proper galactic behavior." This came from Speaker Thexandra, who led the council sessions. She was a Vorthan with purple skin and 4 eyes arranged around her head so she could see in all directions at once. 2 of her eyes were looking at the humans while the other 2 watched the rest of the chamber. Park Hyun had heard enough. He stood up slowly from his chair. The movement was smooth and controlled, even though he wanted to slam his fists on the desk. Every eye and optical sensor in the chamber turned toward him. The chamber became quiet except for the humming of air recyclers and the soft buzzing of translation equipment. Park Hyun straightened his black diplomatic suit and looked around at all the alien faces staring at him. "For 3 standard years," he began in perfect galactic standard language, "humanity has sat in these chambers and listened to insults disguised as wisdom. We have been called primitive upstarts and barely evolved mammals. We have been told to observe and learn while our betters make decisions about our future." His voice carried clearly through the chamber without amplification. Admiral Kim Soo and Lee Bo-young had both turned to look at him with surprise on their faces. This was not part of their planned strategy for today. "During these 3 years," Park Hyun continued, "humanity has contributed more to galactic civilization than some species have managed in centuries. Our medical researchers developed the nano-treatment that stopped the Zephyrian plague from killing 12 billion beings across 37 worlds. Our engineers designed the quantum navigation systems that reduced travel times by 60% and made safe passage possible through previously dangerous space regions. Our agricultural specialists created crop varieties that ended famines on 7 different planets and fed millions of hungry people." Veltar started to interrupt, but Park Hyun held up one hand and kept talking. "We shared our knowledge freely because we believed in the ideals this council claims to represent. We thought we were joining a community of equals working together for the good of all sapient life. Instead, we found a hierarchy where age matters more than ability, and where species are ranked by how long they have been members, rather than what they contribute." The chamber was still completely quiet. Some of the aliens were making small movements that meant nervousness or confusion in their body language. Others sat perfectly still like statues. "Today, Counselor Veltar has proposed new trade restrictions that would cut off supplies to 17 human colonies in the outer systems. These colonies provide food and raw materials to 43 different worlds. The restrictions would not hurt just humans. They would cause suffering for billions of beings who depend on those supply lines. Park Hyun walked out from behind the human section's desk and stood in the open space at the center of the chamber, where speakers traditionally addressed the full council. But the restrictions are not really about trade or safety, or any of the reasons listed in the proposal. They are about putting the newest species in their place. They are about showing the barely evolved mammals that they serve at the pleasure of their betters. Admiral Kim Soo was now standing too along with the other members of the human delegation. They moved to join Park Hyun in the center of the chamber like a military formation. Humanity rejects this treatment, Park Hyun said with his voice growing stronger. We came seeking partnership, but you offer only servitude disguised as guidance. We wanted to build something better together, but you want to preserve the same old systems that keep some species on top and others underneath. Speaker Thexandra finally found her voice. Ambassador Park, your emotional outburst is most inappropriate. Perhaps you need time to consider. We have considered. Park Hyun cut her off. For 3 years we have considered every slight and every insult and every attempt to make us grateful for scraps from your table. We have considered your wisdom and found it wanting. He looked around at all the alien faces one more time. Some looked angry, others looked worried. A few looked confused as if they could not believe what they were hearing. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all ongoing negotiations with the Galactic Council. We terminate all collaborative research projects and suspend all technology. Sharing agreements. Human diplomatic personnel will be leaving Council facilities within 48 standard hours. The sound that filled the chamber could only be described as chaos. Dozens of different species all started talking at once in their own languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up and produced a stream of overlapping words and sounds. That made no sense. Park Hyun waited for the noise to die down a little before speaking again. We know what you are thinking. You believe humanity needs the Council more than the Council needs humanity. You think we will come back in a few months with apologies and better offers. You are wrong on both counts. Admiral Kim Soo stepped forward. Her military bearing made several alien representatives lean back in their seats. Human space will remain open to individual species who wish to deal with us as equals, she said. But we will no longer pretend that this council represents anything other than an old boys club that exists to protect the privileges of its oldest members. Lee Bo-young activated her tablet and began reading from it. All human-designed systems currently in use by council members will cease receiving updates and technical support. All human personnel currently working on council projects will be reassigned. All data sharing between human institutions and council research facilities will end. The chamber erupted in noise again. This time Park Hyun did not wait for quiet. He turned and walked toward the exit with the entire human delegation following behind him in perfect formation. As they reached the doors, Park Hyun turned back one last time. The chamber had gone quiet again, as hundreds of alien beings watched the humans leave. You called us barely evolved mammals, he said. Perhaps it is time you learned what mammals do when they are cornered and have no other choice but to fight or flee. We choose neither. We choose to build something better without you. The doors closed behind them with a soft whisper of compressed air, leaving the Galactic Council to face the first real challenge to their authority in over 1,000 years. Choi Min-ho stood at the large window in his office and watched ships move through the space around New Seoul Station. The station was built like a wheel with spokes that spun slowly to create artificial gravity. It was not as big as the council stations, but it felt more like home. The corridors were the right size for humans, and the air smelled clean without the mix of alien chemicals. 3 months had passed since Park Hyun led the human delegation out of the council chambers. 3 months since humanity had said no to being treated like children by species that thought age made them wise. 3 months since the galaxy had started to fall apart without human help. The communication system on his desk made a soft chime. Another message from the council. Choi Min-ho did not bother to open it. He knew what it would say. The same thing all the others had said. Come back. We can talk. We can work something out. Let us find a compromise. But there was no compromise with people who thought you were less than them. There was no working something out with species that called you barely evolved mammals and meant it as an insult. The Council had made their position clear for 3 years. Now humanity was making their position clear too. Dr. Han Sora entered the office without knocking. She was allowed to do that because she was working on the most important project humanity had ever started. Her white lab coat was wrinkled and there were dark circles under her eyes from too many hours without sleep. "The latest reports from Zephyrian space," she said while dropping a data pad on his desk. "It is getting worse." Choi Min-ho picked up the pad and scrolled through the information. The Zephyrian plague was spreading again. Without human nanotreatments to stop it, the disease was jumping from planet to planet like a fire through dry grass. 12 billion beings had already died and the number was growing every day. "The Council is begging us to restart the nanotreatment production," Han Sora said. She sat down in the chair across from his desk and rubbed her temples with both hands. "They are offering us full membership with voting rights equal to the founding species." "Full membership," Choi Min-ho repeated. "After 3 years of telling us we were not ready for basic participation, now they want to give us full membership." Han Sora nodded. Speaker Thexandra sent the offer directly to President Park Se-jin on Earth. "No conditions except that we restart the medical programs and return to the negotiating table." Through the window, Choi Min-ho could see a human cargo ship docking with the station. It was carrying supplies from Earth to the outer colonies, the same outer colonies that Councillor Veltar had wanted to cut off with his trade restrictions. The colonies that were now completely independent of Council oversight. "What did the President say?" he asked. "Nothing yet. But you know what she will say. The same thing we have all been saying. We are done being junior partners in their club." Another chime from the communication system. This time it was not from the Council. It was from Admiral Kim Soo aboard the human fleet stationed at the edge of human space. Choi Min-ho opened the message and read it quickly. "The Altarians have officially declared independence from the Council," he said. "Admiral Kim reports that their fleet is requesting permission to transit through human space to avoid Council patrols." Han Sora looked up with interest. The Altarian collective had been under Council control for 200 years. They were good people who had been forced to give up their independence because their home system was rich in rare minerals that the Council wanted. "Are we going to help them?" she asked. President Park Se-jin already gave the order. "All Altarian ships get free passage through human territory and access to our supply stations. No questions asked." This was how it was happening all over the galaxy. Species that had been forced into Council membership were starting to remember what independence felt like. The humans walking away had shown everyone else that it was possible to say no to the Council and survive. The communication system chimed. Again. This time it was an emergency broadcast on all Council frequencies. Choi Min-ho activated the wall screen, and they both watched as Speaker Thexandra appeared. She looked terrible. Her purple skin had gone pale, and 2 of her 4 eyes were darting around nervously. The other 2 were focused on the camera with the kind of stare that meant someone was very afraid. "Citizens of the galactic community," she began. "Recent events have created temporary disruptions to some essential services. The Council is working with all member species to resolve these issues as quickly as possible." Han Sora made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Temporary disruptions. Is that what they are calling it?" On the screen, Thexandra continued. "Trade routes remain secure, and alternative solutions are being implemented for any technical difficulties. The Council calls on all member species to remain calm and continue normal operations." The broadcast ended and Choi Min-ho turned off the screen. Through the window he could see more ships arriving at New Seoul Station. Not just human ships now. There were Altarian vessels with their distinctive triangular hulls, and even a few ships from species he did not recognize. The quantum navigation network failed completely in the Outer Rim yesterday, Han Sora said. "Without human maintenance, the whole system is breaking down. Ships are having to use old-style navigation that takes 3 times as long and is much more dangerous." She stood up and walked to the window to look out at the ships. "The Council spent so long treating us like we were not important that they forgot how much they actually needed us. Now they are finding out." Choi Min-ho nodded. It had always been the human way to make things work better, to find solutions that nobody else thought of, to build systems that were more efficient and reliable than what had come before. But the council had seen this as showing off or trying to prove something instead of just trying to help. "What about Phoenix Protocol?" he asked. "How much longer?" Han So-ra smiled for the first time in weeks. "Dr. Zhang Hai-wan finished the final tests yesterday. We can activate it any time we want. Phoenix Protocol was humanity's insurance policy, something they had been working on since the day they first made contact with alien life. A network of automated stations and defense platforms that would appear all throughout human space at the same time. Technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council had ever seen. The Council thought they knew what humans were capable of. They had seen human medicine and engineering and agriculture. They thought that was everything. They were wrong. The Vorthan Third Fleet moved into the Kepler system this morning, Choi Min-ho said. Intelligence reports suggest they are planning to occupy our research stations there. Han So-ra's smile got wider. Let them try. Admiral Kim has been waiting for an excuse to show the Council what human military technology really looks like. Another message came through the communication system. This one was from Earth. President Park Se-jin had made her decision about the Council's offer of full membership. Choi Min-ho read the message aloud. The President thanks the Council for their generous offer but respectfully declines. Humanity has no interest in joining organizations that mistake age for wisdom and hierarchy for leadership. We will build our own future with species that understand the difference between cooperation and submission. Through the window, more ships were arriving every hour. Not Council ships trying to force humans back to the negotiating table. Independent ships from species that wanted to trade and cooperate without Council oversight. Ships carrying beings who were tired of being told what to do by ancient species that thought the galaxy belonged to them. The Morvarian colonies in Wine, the Beta Sector have stopped sending tribute to the Council homeworld, Han So-ra said while checking her datapad again. The crystal beings on Zarian are refusing to provide focusing elements for Council weapons systems. Even some of the younger, hegemony worlds are starting to ask questions about why they have to obey orders from species they have never even met. It was happening faster than anyone had expected. The Council had held the galaxy together through tradition and fear for so long that they had forgotten how to actually lead. When humans showed there was another way, other species started to remember that they had choices too. The Council is sending another delegation to Earth, Choi Min-ho said. Veltar himself is leading it. They want to discuss terms for human participation in a reformed galactic government. Han So-ra laughed out loud this time. Reformed galactic government? The same Veltar who called us barely evolved mammals wants to reform the government he helped create. I wonder what changed his mind. They both knew what had changed his mind. The same thing that was changing minds all across the galaxy. The sudden realization that humans were not the primitive species everyone thought they were. The discovery that human technology was not just helpful, but essential for galactic civilization to function. But it was too late for reforms now. Too late for better offers and improved terms. Humanity had tried cooperation and been offered subjugation. They had tried partnership and been given servitude. Now they would build something new without the Council's help or permission. The communication system chimed one more time. This message was from Captain Yoon Tai-ho aboard the exploration ship, Sejong. Captain Yoon Tai-ho stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Sejong and watched the stars through the main view screen. They were further from Earth than any human had ever traveled before. Out here in the space between the galactic arms, there were no Council patrols or ancient treaties or species arguing about who was in charge of what. There was just empty space waiting for someone to fill it with something better than what had come before. The Sejong was not a military ship. It was built for exploration and colony establishment. But it carried enough firepower to defend itself and the 43 human colonies that were now scattered across this region of space. Each colony was small, but growing fast as more ships arrived every week carrying families who wanted to start over somewhere new. Captain, said Lieutenant Oh Ji-min from her position at the engineering station. We are getting signals from the Phoenix stations. All systems show green across the network. Yunteho nodded. The Phoenix protocol had been activated 2 weeks ago, and the results were better than anyone had hoped. Automated stations had appeared throughout human space like flowers blooming after rain. Each station was the size of a small city and packed, with technology that made council systems look like children's toys. The stations served multiple purposes. They were weapons platforms that could defend human territory from any threat. They were research facilities where human scientists could work on projects too dangerous or too advanced for planet-based laboratories. They were also diplomatic outposts where other species could come to meet with humans without having to travel all the way to Earth. But most importantly, they were proof that humanity had never needed the Council as much as the Council had needed humanity. Report from the Kepler Junction, said Communications Officer Park Min-suk. Admiral Kim requests permission to engage the Vorthen fleet that entered our territory this morning. The Vorthen Third Fleet had been trying to intimidate human colonies for weeks. 3 massive battleships with enough firepower to destroy planets. They were used to other species backing down when they showed up. They were about to learn that humans did not back down from anyone. Tell Admiral Kim she has permission to defend our territory using any means necessary, Yoon Tae-ho said. Rules of engagement are her discretion. Through the view screen he could see one of the Phoenix stations in the distance. It looked like a metal flower with dozens of arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm ended in something that looked like a sensor array but was actually a weapon system capable of destroying ships from several light years away. The station had not been there yesterday. It had materialized from folded space using technology that human scientists had developed in secret over decades. Technology that the Council had never suspected existed because they were too busy treating humans like primitive newcomers to pay attention to what humans were actually capable of. Captain, said Science Officer Nam Hee-jin from her station near the back of the bridge, I am reading massive quantum distortions throughout this sector. It looks like more Phoenix stations are coming online. The Phoenix network was growing every day. New stations appeared in strategic locations throughout human space and beyond. Some were visible like the one outside the view screen. Others remained hidden in folded space where they could observe and respond to threats without being detected. Each station was connected to all the others through quantum communication links that allowed instant coordination across thousands of light years. When one station learned something new, all stations learned it immediately. When one station identified a threat, all stations could respond as one. It was the kind of unified defense network that the Council had always claimed was impossible to build. Too expensive, they had said. Too complicated to maintain. Too dangerous to trust to artificial intelligence systems. But humans had built it anyway because humans understood something the Council had forgotten. The best defense was not a big army or powerful weapons. The best defense was being too valuable to attack and too dangerous to threaten. Incoming transmission from New Seoul Station, Park Min-suk reported. Chief Administrator Choi Min-ho wants to speak with you directly. The main view screen switched from the star field to show Choi Min-ho sitting in his office. Behind him through the window, Yoon Tae-ho could see dozens of ships from different species docked at the station. Not Council species, independent species that wanted to trade and cooperate without Council oversight. Captain Yoon, Choi Min-ho said, I have news from the inner systems. The Altarian Collective has officially joined our coalition. They are bringing 12 inhabited systems and one of the largest merchant fleets in the galaxy. This was good news but not surprising. The Altarians had been waiting for an excuse to break free from Council control for decades. When humanity showed it was possible to say no to the Council and survive, other species had started saying no too. What about military support? Yoon Tae-ho asked. The Council is not going to let their member species leave without a fight. The Altarians have agreed to coordinate their defense forces with Admiral Kim's fleet, Choi Min-ho replied. They have also shared their stealth technology with our research teams. Apparently, they have been developing some very interesting innovations while pretending to follow Council restrictions on military research. The screen split to show another face. Dr. Han Sora was calling in from her laboratory on one of the Phoenix stations. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were bright with excitement the way they always got when she had discovered something new. Captain, "You need to see this," she said. "We just finished analyzing the technology the Altarians shared with us. Their stealth systems are actually more advanced than anything we developed. If we combine their cloaking technology with our weapon systems, we can build ships that are completely invisible to Council sensors." Yun Taiho felt a smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. The Council had always assumed that humans were the only species in the galaxy capable of real innovation. They thought all the other species were content to follow orders and use technology that was thousands of years old. But the truth was that many species had been developing new technology in secret. They just had not been allowed to use it, because the Council preferred to keep things the way they had always been. Now that humans had shown there was an alternative to Council control, all that hidden innovation was coming out into the open. "There is more," Dr. Hansora continued. "The crystal beings from Zerion have contacted us through unofficial channels. They want to share their quantum focusing technology in exchange for protection from Council retaliation. With their focusing, crystals and our quantum communication systems, we could build a faster-than-light communication network that covers the entire galaxy." This was the real strength of humanity's approach. Instead of trying to dominate other species like the Council, humans were building partnerships with species that wanted to work together as equals. Each species brought their own unique strengths and capabilities. Together they were becoming something much more powerful than the sum of their parts. "Contact from Admiral Kim," Park Min-suk announced. "The engagement at Kepler Junction is complete." The view screen switched to show Admiral Kim standing on the bridge of her flagship. Behind her, Yun Taiho could see tactical displays showing the positions of human and Vorthon ships. The human force consisted of 12 frigates and 3 cruisers. The Vorthon force had been 3 massive battleships with escort vessels. "Captain," Admiral Kim said with a satisfied expression on her face, "I am pleased to report that the Vorthon Third Fleet has withdrawn from human territory. They will not be returning." "Casualties?" Yun Taiho asked. "None on our side. The Vorthons lost 2 escort ships, but their crews were rescued. The battleships suffered heavy damage but remained operational. I think they got the message." Admiral Kim's expression became more serious. "The interesting thing is how they fought. Or rather, how they did not fight. Their tactics were completely predictable. Same formations they have been using for centuries. Same weapon systems. Same command structure. It was like fighting an enemy that had not learned anything new in 1,000 years. This was the Council's fundamental weakness. They were so convinced that age meant wisdom that they had stopped trying to improve or adapt. They used the same strategies and tactics that had worked for them in the past without considering that other species might have learned new ways of fighting. Humans fought differently. They adapted to each situation and enemy. They used technology that could change and evolve during combat. They coordinated their forces in ways that the Council could not predict or counter, because the Council had never bothered to study how humans actually thought and fought. "Admiral," Yun Taiho said, "what is your assessment of Council military capabilities based on this engagement?" Admiral Kim considered the question for a moment. "Individually, their ships are more powerful than ours. Their weapons have more range and their shields are stronger. But they fight like they are still facing the same enemies they fought 1,000 years ago. They have not adapted to face opponents who think differently than they do." She paused and looked at something off-screen before continuing. "If this engagement is representative of their overall military doctrine..." Director Shin Woo-jin sat in the secure briefing room deep inside Earth's orbital command station and watched the faces of the people around the table. These were the leaders of humanity's intelligence services, military commands, and scientific research programs. They had been planning for this day since humans first made contact with alien life 47 years ago. "The Council still believes we will come back," said Admiral Kim Soo, from her position at the head of the table. "Their latest intelligence reports suggest they think our withdrawal is a negotiating tactic designed to get better terms in future agreements." General Kang Do-hyun leaned back in his chair and made a sound that might have been laughter. 47. Years of preparation, and they think this is about getting better terms. They really have no idea what they are dealing with. Shin Woo-jin activated the holographic display system in the center of the table. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared showing Council territory in red, human space in blue, and the growing coalition of independent species in green. The green areas were spreading like water flowing into empty spaces. As of this morning, 17 species have formally withdrawn from Council membership, he said. 32 others have stopped paying tribute or following Council directives. The hegemony homeworld is dealing with rebellion on 6 of their major colony worlds. Even the Vorthon Empire is facing internal pressure to reconsider their relationship with the Council. The map updated to show the latest changes. More red areas turning green as species declared independence or simply stopped acknowledging Council authority. The galaxy was restructuring itself faster than anyone had predicted. "The beautiful part," said Dr. Zhang Haiwan from her seat near the back of the room, "is that they did this to themselves. We just showed them it was possible to say no. Everything else has been their choice." She was right. Humanity had not conquered anyone or forced any species to join their coalition. They had simply demonstrated that the Council's power depended on everyone agreeing to pretend it was legitimate. Once enough species stopped pretending, the whole system began to collapse. "What is the status of our integration protocols?" Admiral Kim asked. Xin Wujin smiled. This was the part he had been looking forward to explaining. Every piece of human technology that we shared with Council species included what we called integration protocols. The Council thought these were just compatibility systems to make human technology work with their existing infrastructure. He activated a new display showing technical schematics and system diagrams. In reality, the integration protocols were remote access systems that allowed us to monitor and control any technology that used human components or designs. "We have been watching everything the Council does for decades," General Kang Do-hyun whistled softly. "Everything?" "Everything," Xin Wujin confirmed. "Their communication networks use human quantum relay technology. Their transportation systems use human navigation computers. Their medical facilities use human diagnostic equipment. Their power grids use human efficiency optimization systems. Even their military ships use human-designed targeting systems and defensive shields." The implications were staggering. For decades, the Council had been completely dependent on human technology, while treating humans as junior partners who should be grateful for the privilege of participating in galactic civilization. 2 weeks ago, we activated the shutdown protocols. Xin Wujin continued. Every piece of human technology in Council space began experiencing what appeared to be random system failures. The failures were actually carefully coordinated to cause maximum disruption with minimum loss of life. Admiral Kim leaned forward. "What kind of disruption are we talking about?" Dr. Zhang Haiwan took over the briefing. "Transportation networks have failed completely in 17 Council systems. Ships can still travel, but they have to use outdated navigation systems that are 3 times slower and 10 times more dangerous. Medical facilities have lost access to advanced diagnostic and treatment systems, forcing them to use emergency procedures that were developed centuries ago. Communication networks are operating at about 30% efficiency, making coordination between Council worlds almost impossible." She paused to let the information sink in before continuing. "Power grids are failing in a cascade pattern designed to avoid life support systems while disabling industrial and military facilities. Food distribution networks are breaking down as automated systems revert to manual operation that requires workers who do not exist because everything has been automated for decades." Xin Wujin brought up another display showing population centers throughout Council space. "The interesting thing is that non-Council species living in the same regions are not affected. The Altarian colonies in former Council territory still have full access to human technology because they are now part of our coalition. The same is true for crystal being settlements and Morvarian research stations that have declared independence." This selective targeting was sending a clear message throughout the galaxy. Species that worked with humanity as equals got access to the best technology available. Species that insisted on maintaining the old hierarchical system got to discover how much they had been depending on human innovation without realizing it. "What about the Council's attempts to reverse engineer our technology?" Admiral Kim asked. General Kang Do-hyun activated his own display showing intelligence reports from throughout Council space. Complete failure across the board. They have been trying for 6 months to duplicate human quantum communication systems. Their best scientists cannot even figure out how the basic components work. He switched to showing images of captured Council research facilities. The problem is that they have been thinking like Council scientists for so long that they cannot adapt to human approaches. They assume everything should follow the same engineering principles that have been used in the galaxy for thousands of years. Human technology is based on completely different principles that they have never encountered before. This was the fundamental difference between human and alien thinking. Council species had advanced to a certain point and then stopped innovating. They preferred to refine existing technology rather than develop entirely new approaches. Humans never stopped trying to find better ways of doing things. There is something else, Shin Woo-jin said. Ambassador Lim Yeon-soo has been receiving increasingly desperate communications from individual council members, not official diplomatic messages, private requests for help. He brought up recordings of alien voices speaking in various languages. The translation systems made their words understandable, but could not hide the fear and desperation in their voices. This is from a hegemony governor whose colony is facing starvation because the food distribution network failed, Shin Woo-jin said as one recording played. This is from a Vorthon fleet commander whose ships are stranded in deep space because their navigation system stopped working. This is from a crystal being researcher whose laboratory lost power and is now requesting emergency evacuation. Admiral Kim listened to several recordings before speaking. Are we responding to these requests? Selectively, Shin Woo-jin replied. We are providing humanitarian aid to civilian populations, but only through species that have left the Council or declared independence. We are not helping Council military or government facilities. This selective assistance was having exactly the effect humanity had hoped for. Ordinary citizens throughout Council space were learning that their governments could not protect them or provide for their needs, but independent species living in the same regions were thriving with human support. The psychological impact is significant, Dr. Jang Hae-won added. Council propaganda has always portrayed humanity as dependent on alien wisdom and technology. Now their own citizens are seeing that the opposite is true. The Council was dependent on human innovation, while humans were never dependent on Council leadership. General Kang Do-hyun brought up military intelligence reports. Speaking of military implications, the Council has been trying to use force to maintain control over rebellious member species. It is not working out the way they expected. The display showed battle reports from dozens of different systems, Council fleets attempting to intimidate or occupy worlds that had declared independence. The results were uniformly embarrassing for the Council forces. The problem is that they are still using tactics and strategies that worked against other Council species, Admiral Kim observed. But the species they are fighting now have access to human military technology and training. It is like watching ancient armies try to fight modern forces. Shin Woo-jin nodded. The tactical coordination systems we shared with our coalition partners allow real-time information sharing between ships from different species. A crystal being cruiser can coordinate with an Altarian frigate and a human destroyer, as if they were all part of the same fleet. Council forces have never faced anything like that before. The reports showed Council fleets arriving at rebellious worlds expecting quick victories, and instead finding themselves outmaneuvered by smaller forces using unfamiliar tactics. Ships that appeared on sensors but could not be targeted. Weapons that adapted to enemy defenses in real time. Coordinated attacks that came from directions that should have been. President Park Si-jin stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall of New Terra Station and looked out at the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species sat in sections designed to accommodate their various physical needs. The air recycling system worked overtime to maintain atmospheric conditions that everyone could breathe, while translation devices ensured that every word could be understood by every being present. 1 year had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. 1 year since Park Hyun had declared that humans would build their own future without asking permission from species who thought age made them wise. Now that future was taking shape in ways that even the most optimistic human planners had not dared to imagine. Friends and partners, President Park Si-jin began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustic systems. We gather today not as rulers and subjects, not as senior and junior partners, not as ancient civilizations teaching primitive newcomers. We gather as equals who have chosen to work together toward common goals. The translation systems conveyed not just her words, but the emotional undertones that made human speech so effective at building connections between different groups. Several alien representatives made sounds or gestures that indicated approval and agreement. Behind the president, the great window that formed the back wall of the assembly hall showed the construction site where humanity's most ambitious project was taking shape. The Harmony Station was going to be larger than anything the old council had ever built, but it was designed on completely different principles. Instead of a monument to the power of whoever built it, Harmony Station was being constructed as a living example of cooperation. Each participating species had contributed unique technologies and design elements. The result was something that had never existed before, a structure that could only have been created by multiple species working together as equals. The old Galactic Order was built on the idea that some species were naturally superior to others, President Park Si-jin continued. That age meant wisdom, and tradition meant truth. That newer species should be grateful for the guidance of their betters, and accept whatever role they were given in a hierarchy they had no part in creating. In the audience, she could see representatives from species that had been at the bottom of that hierarchy for centuries. The crystal beings whose focusing technology was considered too dangerous for them to use themselves. The Morvarian traders whose merchant skills were valued, but whose political opinions were ignored. The Altarian explorers who had been forced to give up their independence because their worlds contained resources that more powerful species wanted. That order is ending, the president said. Not because we destroyed it through force or conquest, but because we showed everyone that there was another way, a way based on mutual respect instead of enforced submission, a way where each species contributes what they do best while learning from what others do better. Admiral Cho Yun-mi entered the hall and walked quietly to her seat in the front row. She had just returned from the Vegan colonies where the last major engagement of what historians were already calling the Liberation War had taken place. The Council's final attempt to reassert control through military force had failed completely. The battle itself had lasted less than 6 hours. A Council fleet of 80 ships had faced a coalition force of 30 vessels representing 12 different species. The outcome had never been in doubt once the fighting began. Council forces using thousand-year-old tactics and strategies had been systematically outmaneuvered by coalition forces using real-time coordination and adaptive technology. But the real victory had not been military. It had been the moment when the Council fleet commander had opened communications and asked to surrender not just his ships, but his entire species membership in the Galactic Council. The Vegan hegemony, one of the Council's founding members, had officially requested admission to the human coalition. The principles that guide our coalition are simple, President Park Si-jin said. Each member species maintains complete sovereignty over their internal affairs. No species is required to adopt the customs or beliefs of any other species. Participation in coalition projects is voluntary and based on mutual benefit rather than obligation. She paused to let the translation systems catch up before continuing. But we also have responsibilities to each other. We share knowledge freely, rather than hoarding it for competitive advantage. We provide assistance to members facing natural disasters or external threats. We resolve disputes through negotiation and compromise rather than force or intimidation. Engineer Oh Ji-min watched from the observation gallery above the main floor. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see work crews from dozens of species installing new sections on Harmony Station. Humans provided the basic structural framework. Crystal beings contributed focusing arrays that made the whole structure stronger than any single material could be. Altarians added stealth systems that could hide the entire station if necessary. Morvarians designed living spaces that could adapt to the needs of any species. It was beautiful in a way that the old council stations had never been. Those had been built to impress and intimidate. Harmony Station was being built to welcome and include. Some have asked whether our coalition will become as rigid and hierarchical as the system it replaced, President Park Se-jin said, addressing a concern that had been raised in diplomatic communications from several neutral species. The answer is in our fundamental structure. The old council was led by its oldest and most powerful members. Our coalition is led by whoever is best qualified for each specific task. She gestured toward Admiral Cho and me in the front row. Our military coordination is led by Admiral Cho, because she has proven herself the most effective tactical commander in the known galaxy. But our agricultural development programs are led by Dr. Velnaran of the Crystal Beings, because her innovations have increased crop yields by 300% across 17 different biomes. This was the key difference between the old system and the new one. The council had been organized around the assumption that some species were naturally better at leadership than others. The coalition was organized around the principle that every species had unique strengths that could benefit everyone when applied in the right context. The old Galactic Council officially dissolved 3 days ago, President Park Se-jin announced. The remaining member species have either joined our coalition or established independent governments. The galaxy is now free from the hierarchical system that has limited progress and cooperation for thousands of years. The announcement was met with sounds of approval from throughout the hall. Some species clicked or chirped. Others made harmonic tones or rhythmic vibrations. Humans applauded. The combined sound was unlike anything that had ever been heard in any previous galactic assembly. Dr. Jang Hai-won stood up in the section reserved for scientific advisors. She had been working for months on the integration protocols that would allow the coalition's diverse technologies to work together seamlessly. Her latest breakthrough had made real-time translation between dozens of languages possible through quantum-linked neural interfaces. Madam President, she said, I have a report on the Harmony Project's completion timeline. President Park Se-jin nodded for her to continue. All major structural components will be complete within 6 months, Dr. Jang Hai-won said. The first residential sections will be ready for occupation in 4 months. Full operational capacity, including government facilities, research laboratories, and cultural centers, will be achieved within 1 standard year. She activated a holographic display that showed the completed station. It was enormous, capable of housing 10 million beings from dozens of different species. But its size was not its most impressive feature. The most impressive thing was how it had been designed to grow and adapt over time, as new species joined the coalition and new technologies became available. The station's artificial intelligence systems will be based on cooperative learning, models developed jointly by human crystal being and Altarian research teams, Dr. Jang Hai-won continued. Unlike the rigid programming used in council systems, Harmony Station will be able to learn and adapt to the changing needs of its inhabitants. President Park Se-jin looked out at the assembly and felt a sense of satisfaction that she had never experienced during her years of dealing with council bureaucracy. This was what cooperation was supposed to look like. Not species pretending to work together while protecting their own advantages, but genuine collaboration toward shared goals. There is one more announcement, she said. The Coalition Council has voted unanimously to establish the first galactic university on Harmony Station. This institution will be open to students from any species, whether they are coalition members or not. The goal is to share knowledge and promote understanding between all sapient beings. The response to this announcement was even more enthusiastic than the previous ones. Education had always been restricted under the old council system. Species were only allowed to learn technologies that the council deemed appropriate for their level of development. The new university would have no such restrictions.